goes on. And we need to assert this to ourselves every day, that we shall overcome, that we are not afraid, we are not alone, and that someday we shall all be free, free of our own internal shackles, free of the external prison that we've put ourselves into, free of our own hang-ups, just free. Liberated. So Sraddha transforms an ordinary person into an extraordinary person. And if you have that spark in you, if you have something which tells you you are born to transform into that extraordinary, you must have Sraddha. It changes your life from one of mediocrity to that of excellence, from failure to success. You move from a whimsical, impulsive person to a focused, consistent, determined person. You move from performing slipshod, half-hearted actions to perfect actions that stun the world. Most importantly, you move from the mundane to the divine. Various people have defined faith in various ways. Joe Goldsmith has said that faith is belief in a thing that you do not know until you come to know what you believe in. Like faith in God, for instance. You don't know what God is. You don't know what that divine power is. And yet, even in the most depressing moments, you have the faith that there is that divine being. And you pursue with that faith until you come to know what you believe in. Rabindranath Tagore put it most poetically, like only a poet can. He said, faith is like the bird that feels the light and sings while the dawn is still dark. I don't know how many of you have woken up just before dawn when it's still pitch dark outside and it's silent, and suddenly, as if by cue, all the birds wake up and start chirping as if to herald the dawn. And this is it, when you're in your bleakest moments, when you're in the most depressing moments, there is something in you which says the sun will shine someday. That is Sraddha. Like, there's so many examples. When Sita was abducted by Ravana, was taken prisoner, kept prisoner, she chose not to indulge in the temptations that were offered to her, but instead stayed in what is known as the Ashoka Vanam. Shoka is sorrow, Ashoka, non-sorrow. The moment you refuse to indulge in what the temptations that the world has to offer, you are in a state of non-sorrow. You may not have gotten to the state of realization, positive bliss, but you are at least not sorrowful. And in that Ashoka Vanam, she has this infinite faith that Rama will come to her and relieve her of her imprisonment. And surely, Rama first sends his emissary, Hanuman appears and shows her Rama's ring, and then she is confident that Rama will come, and she escapes this prison. Plato gives a beautiful metaphor of a generation of people living in a dark cave, and they have nothing except a fire that's going on in the center. In that condition, there's a young man who tells everyone, the elders, there has to be something outside this cave. The whole world can't be just this little existence of ours. And the elders make fun of him and say, you think we are fools? We've explored everything. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So have your dinner and go to sleep. He follows them. But this Sraddha is there within him, which tells him there's got to be something outside of this cave. And so he sets out on his own. When he turns a few corners, he reaches a frightening stage where he's in complete darkness. He's lost sight of the fire in the cave. He hasn't yet reached the mouth of the cave. But it is this Sraddha, the determination, the belief, the faith that keeps him going. And very soon he sees the mouth of the cave from a distance which sparkles like a diamond. And he knows now that he was right. And he pursues it. He comes out into the open and sees what you and I see every day. He sees the brilliant sun. He sees the trees and the flowers. He smells various scents and fragrances. He hears sounds. And most importantly, he breathes what Wordsworth calls as an ethereal air, fresh air he gets to breathe for the first time in his life. And he's jubilant and ecstatic. He enjoys this for a couple of days, and then he remembers his family back there in the cave. He goes back in there with the idea that he'll bring them all out and that all of them will enjoy this wonderful world. But when he goes back and he speaks of the sun and the moon and the stars and the flowers and trees, and the more he goes on, the more they are convinced that he's gone mad. And so they say, poor fellow, we always knew there was something wrong with him. They don't believe him until one day he says, I've done my bit, tomorrow I'm leaving, I'm going back. Just then, another young boy comes to him and says, come on, let's go, I'm with you. Now this time the journey out into the open is much easier because he's been that way before. And when they come out, he watches with amusement the younger boy going through exactly the same reactions that he went through a few days earlier. And when the younger fellow has had his fill of the world, he tells him, now you go back in there and pull out one more guy. And that is this wonderful Guru-Shishya parampara that we have, which has been going on for centuries, and in spite of ourselves, hopefully will carry on for another few centuries. So, Sraddha. Sraddha goes beyond just faith. Shankaracharya defines it as a function of the intellect, the capacity of the intellect to take in fresh ideas, to reflect over them, contemplate upon them, do manana, absorb them into one system until it becomes an inseparable part of you. Only then do you really know it. So, Sraddha is a very important aspect of life. It is, you can't live without Sraddha. If you did not have Sraddha, you wouldn't be sitting here. Because the doubt will arise, what if the roof falls down on us? If you didn't have Sraddha, you wouldn't be able to see a doctor when you fall ill. If you didn't have Sraddha, it's impossible to live. Aldous Huxley says there are 4 distinct types of faith. One is trust in another equal, like you trust your friend to look after your interests. The second is belief in an authority. When you go to a doctor or a lawyer or a chartered accountant or a guru, a spiritual guru, a teacher, you have faith in the authority of his knowledge. The third is faith in an unverified truth which is verifiable. For instance, many of you may not have seen kangaroos, but you've heard that there are kangaroos in Australia. There is enough evidence for you to believe the fact that there are kangaroos in Australia. So it is an unverified fact, but it is verifiable. You can go there and see a kangaroo. The last is unverified and unverifiable. That is Atman. That there is a spirit, that there is God, there is some divine power, call it what you like, is not only unverified by you right now, It is unverifiable because the intellect does not have the capacity to understand the infinite. So, you can only become it, and therefore it is extremely important that you have this Sraddha in the spiritual field. Because unless you have it, you will sit there and say, but where is the proof that there is God? And you'll remain the limited, cynical, pessimistic person that we all tend to be nowadays. So, Sraddha is that which enables you to transform your latent talent into achievement. You know, it's a very interesting article that I saw the other day about the Olympics and the swimmer Michael Phelps. Mark Spitz, another swimmer. Are you familiar with the Olympics? You've heard the name at least. Mark Spitz, who achieved how many golds? 7. 7 golds in the 1972 Olympics, has predicted that Michael Phelps will overtake him in these Olympics because he has amazing focus, Sraddha. And then the journalist went to interview Michael Phelps, and he says, he never speaks of his goal. Of course, his goal is to break the record. Every athlete's goal is to break the previous record. But he doesn't speak about it. He doesn't talk about it. He says, you guys talk about it. I just get into the water and swim. So what it means is, not only do you have Sraddha, faith in yourself, not only do you have a single-pointed determination to achieve your goal, not only do you have a well-planned strategy to achieve that goal, but when you are performing unit action, you don't worry about the goal. And this is a very important aspect of Sraddha. The goal is elusive. The goal is fulfilling. The goal will make you happy. But the pathway to that, the actions that you've got to take in order to reach the goal are not entertaining. They are painful. Sraddha is the capacity to face these actions, to engage in these actions with pleasure. You find fulfillment in the very action. Like Phelps says, he just gets into the water and swims and he finds fulfillment in that. That is Sraddha. How many of us have Sraddha? Like in this morning's paper, there was an interesting article, as if to help us, by Rajneesh Osho, which spoke about something similar to this. It said, you don't have to perform world records. You don't have to perform great actions. Even the simplest of actions, like cooking a meal, or sweeping a room, or dusting furniture, can be done with Sraddha, with a worshipful attitude, in such a way that you find fulfillment in that. That in itself becomes meditation. That becomes action of the highest order. But all of us are sitting there waiting to break world records, waiting to perform actions that will stun the world. No, it is these simple actions performed with extraordinary Sraddha that make for extraordinary actions. So, Sraddha helps convert potential energy into kinetic energy. Those of you who know physics, all of us have the potential to reach that state of self-realization. All of us have potential to reach the state of excellence. But not every one of us has done it. Not every one of us will do it. Why? Because we don't have the Sraddha. We don't have that vision. The vision of perfection you must have in your mind in order to get there. And then there must be this dogged, single-pointed pursuit of the goal. First of all, we don't have a goal. So the goal is elusive. It's in the distant future. The actions that you have to perform are boring. So you only see drudgery, you see hard work, you see pain. Therefore, it is necessary to have Sraddha, Because minus Shraddha, you will not go through that pain. In fact, with Shraddha, the pain becomes fulfilling. The pain becomes a joy. Pain becomes gain. Yes, thank you for the prompting. You find then pleasure in doing it. And you do it with a worshipful attitude, as Rajneesh said, Osho said. So what is Shraddha? The goal is intangible. The effort is tangible. And you need Shraddha to take you from this tangible, painful exercise to the elusive but fulfilling goal. In the Kathopanishad, Nachiketas, the young boy, sees his father perform a sacrifice where he is supposed to give everything, all his possessions. And that is the yajna. But the father, like all of us, doesn't like to give. So what does he do? He gives, again like us, he gives things that are completely useless to him. He gives as gifts old cows that have stopped yielding milk. So instead of supporting the old cows and not getting anything in return, he decides to give that. Nachiketa sees this, and the verse says, his heart was filled with Shraddha. When you read that, you wonder, when he knows what his father has done, and because the next verse says, joyless are the states to which such people go, who don't have the heart to give. You see, it's not a question of what you give. It has nothing to do with the object that you give. You may give nothing. But your attitude should be one that I want to give the whole world. I want to give everything that I have. So, when Nachiketa sees this, why does the verse say that he is filled with Shraddha when he sees something negative happening? He understands the ills of the present actions. He understands the repercussions of these actions that the father will have to bear with. He also understands it as a despicable act. But he has Shraddha, which means he knows that someday